Howdy Moz fans, I'm very excited to be talking to you today, presenting all the way here from Seattle, Washington. And today I'm going to be diving into a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So, I founded SEO Moz many years ago, got deeply involved in SEO, and then recently we've changed our brand from SEO Moz to Moz. And we've grown tremendously, built this great software company, but throughout this period, although I've been very passionate about SEO, I've at times let it blind me, let it surprise me, and I want to share with you some of the ways that my thinking has evolved about SEO over the years and some specific tactical items as well. As always, you can download this slide deck. It's available on SlideShare at bit.ly/blindedbyseo. Let's dive right in. So, Moz was started in Seattle, Washington by my mom and I. It's a lovely city, absolutely beautiful, especially on a sunny day, of which there are 5. I don't know what's up with our weather. It just is how it is. And we went very, very deeply into debt starting the company. In fact, you can see here this representation of our credit card debt as we began the company in the early stages, and eventually it got to be 2004, and we couldn't pay our bills anymore, and so the debt started ramping way up. This is all on personal credit cards. Not a good way to fund a company. I don't recommend it if you can avoid it. And that process, began really when we were in web design development, and then we sort of found the light of SEO in around 2003, 2004, and managed to start to get SEO consulting clients, help those people, and over the course of the next few years, the business did this. It switched from being mostly a consulting company to a software company, and the revenue's grown fairly dramatically. And we've been really lucky, been really blessed to be surrounded by a fantastic community to hit the world of SEO at a time when interest is growing and investment is growing. But SEO, because I was so obsessed with it and so interested in it, also blinded me. It made me blind to the fact that there's a bigger reality out there about how things are bought and sold, about how marketing works, how technology works. I used to believe that if you search for men's socks for sale in Google, right, the first result is going to get 30% of the traffic and sales, and the second result gets, whatever the average click-through rate happens to be, 12%, and then the third result gets 7%, and fourth result gets 5%. It doesn't really work like this, does it? In fact, it's not the case that you go, oh, just get to the number 1 rankings and I will profit. I will win. That's all I need to do. There's actually a much more complex game going on, right? The reality is that the brand that you create, the conversion rate optimization, the funnel that you create, the user experience that you're building around when people click to the page and get to your site, and whether the socks are actually what they want to buy, all of these things influence not only SEO, but how successful your web marketing and your platform, your web platform, whatever that might be, e-commerce or nonprofit or content-driven or advertising-driven or lead generation, all of this stuff impacts the success of those. I used to believe that, most of the users are going to see results in the same order. So if I'm ranking number 1 or number 2, I'm getting a lot of the traffic. But the reality is that those days are over. So many people who search are logged into an account that Google can connect to nowadays, that the days of non-personalized search results are almost over. And by the way, even if you're not logged in, they're using past behavior and search suggest. They're using your geography and what device you're on. There's all sorts of personalizations happening. It's not the case that there's one canonical set of search results for everyone. I used to believe that if I'm number 1 and 2, man, I am winning. I got this thing. I am cleaning up in the search results. Reality, Aaron's probably winning, right? SEO book is likely dominating here. And the reason's simple. He's got his profile picture next to it. That's a more compelling search result and a more compelling title, for some people at least, right? And a more compelling description. And he's got his picture there, and Aaron is very well known. He's got a great brand in the SEO world. I'm probably not winning, right? Aaron's probably winning. He's probably getting as much or more of the traffic than I am. And because of that, number 1 and 2 doesn't mean as much as it used to. I used to believe that in Google, when it comes to search, people search for generics first and brands only after they've discovered which brands they might be interested in, right? I'm going to search for men's socks for sale, not Happy Socks, which is a particular, I think they're a Swedish brand of socks that I wear a lot of nowadays. They're very colorful and bright. And can you see my shoes? I don't know if you can see my shoes, but I have like colorful shoes on. Yeah, awesome. All right, so clearly I like colorful things on my feet. The reality, look at this. Right, men's socks gets what? It gets 2,400-ish searches locally in the U.S. This is right, and some of these brands are getting 2-3 times that amount. Branding, building the brand has been more valuable for these folks than ranking would be, even if they were getting 100% of that traffic. And you know they're getting close to 100% when they're ranking on their branded terms, which is a very powerful SEO tactic in its own right. I used to believe that, if a source doesn't send those converting visits, right? If I look in my traffic refers and I see that Twitter and Facebook are sending me lots of traffic but no conversions, out of there. I don't want them. That's not the reality. It's not the reality, right? It's not useless. When you look at multi-channel attribution, which Google Analytics now provides for free, right? You can see that customer journey starts in one place and might end in a very different place. It could be the case that someone came to me via social media first and search later and content and email and then through a promotion or through an ad. And I don't see that if I'm just looking at the last touch. I'm attributing things that aren't really the driver, and I'm misattributing or not attributing things that might in fact be very important early or in the mid stages of a visitor conversion funnel. So, you get this idea, right? We have this expression, can't see the forest for the trees. Oh, look, it's a tree. It's a lovely tree. SEO. Oh, no, wait a minute. This is a forest, right? This is a much bigger practice. SEO is just one piece of a much bigger practice. And not only is it the case that I can be blinded by this SEO phenomenon, but even by ignoring these other channels, I'm losing focus on things that could help me with SEO. So thankfully, over the years, SEO has evolved. And there's no more of this. You don't see 10 blue links on such a very small percentage. I think it's something less than a quarter of the results that we measure through Mozcast, which is how we look at a lot of search results data, broad search results data, and see trends. Right? No more 10 blue links. You're seeing all kinds of results, snippets that include video, include rel author, include e-commerce markup, include ratings and reviews. It's everything out there nowadays, right? Today, visuals can dominate the search results. Absolutely dominate, like in recipes. I mean, recipe search is essentially, if you don't have a visual, if you don't have these images and the right kinds of markup, forget about recipe search. Forget about trying to rank or being clicked on. It just won't happen, right? Advertising in search results today is taking over a lot of those organic positions. This is, there's examples where you can see nothing above the fold is appearing from organic results. It's all paid search results. That's essentially Google pushing down a lot of the head of the demand curve and saying, no, we or our advertisers in some cases get to own that traffic. And it doesn't belong to SEOs, to organic marketers anymore. And despite these efforts, right, Google's still claiming that only about 20% of all clicks go to advertising. Right? So people are getting more and more sophisticated about what they're actually clicking on, and Google's trying to compensate for that by making advertising more aggressive. Google also puts themselves in the results. Right? If I look at things like flight searches or a lot of sports results, instant answers, the new carousels that have now made their way to local as well, you can see Google's trying to own those results themselves. They want to be the canonical source. They're not just trying to organize the world's information, they're trying to own and dominate the world's information themselves. And this is a very different strategy and means very different things for marketers, right? This might mean, boy, between these advertising kinds of results and Google trying to own stuff, should I really be targeting that? Should I be going after more of the mid and long tail? Should I be broadening my keyword universe? Should I be going earlier in the searcher funnel? Well, all those things might be true, right? There's no more lengthening of the long tail. In 2007, Udi Manber, who was running Google Search at the time, claimed that 20 to 25% of the queries that Google sees each day had never been seen before, which is an incredible statistic. The long tail is just massive. And here we are, March of 2012, right, last year, and Matt Cutts from Google is saying, well, that number's dropped fairly significantly, right? 5 years later, and between things like auto-suggest and, a world where a lot more searches have been performed, we're now seeing that Google is getting less of that uniqueness. So that long tail is shrinking a little bit. Today, those searches are suggested, right? Why do Germans put pickles on their Christmas tree? I don't know, but I appreciate Google suggesting that to me. I probably should search for that. That seems fascinating. And sometimes Google even presumes your search results before you get there. So, I'm clearly searching for red IT here, and Google thinks, well, not that many people search for red IT. I'm going to give you Reddit, which I'm sure is what you were looking for. No, I was looking for red IT. It's all right, right? So these things, interestingly enough, if you're a sophisticated marketer, these things can be influenced. They are influenceable. If you build a brand and lots of people are searching for your brand name, or you build a brand around a specific topic, you can start to own the suggestions, how Google frames suggest. By the way, search suggest through formats like this is locally based, meaning if lots of people are searching for SEO tools in Seattle, that might come up as a Google search suggest here, but not necessarily in New York City or London or Rome or Odessa, for example. So there's a difference there. My recommendation would still be to focus on that long tail and that chunky middle for SEO. I think in the head of the demand curve, it's very tough to compete, and I think Google is taking more and more of it for themselves and for their advertisers. Chunky middle and long tail is still an area of a ton of opportunity and a lot of new opportunity all the time, right? Less competition, the searches tend to be higher converting, and it's easier to serve that visitor intent because you know precisely what they're looking for. There's no more domination without a brand, right? If you're not building a brand, something that Google would say, oh yes, that is the type of result that we want in there, and yes, that's a real company, a real website, that is backing up real people, an authentic brand. It's just not going to work, right? Today, we see searches that are being biased to established brands. McKinsey here does not have the word management consultants anywhere on the page, right? Certainly not in their title, not in their domain name or their brand name, but Google is presuming, well, management consultants and McKinsey, these two things go together, right? It's like cereal and milk, just they're meant to be together. Sometimes they suggest the brands directly, right? I search for men's dress shoes, and there's Alan Edmonds and Kenneth Cole and Florsheim, whoever, right? And if I'm not a brand, there's no chance to be in those results, which can be frustrating and infuriating as you're the little guy. And then as you grow to be bigger and you develop some of that brand equity, you think, hey, I'm on the verge of becoming a brand. I can't wait for the biasing that Google's going to provide to me, right? Brands also get preferential treatment. It is the case when big brands like JCPenney, or BMW Germany, right, got hit by these penalties, they recover really fast. For any of you who've ever owned, sort of played in the gray hat, black hat realm, you know that sometimes you'll have a website that gets hit by some algorithmic update or classified as spam, slapped down by Panda or Penguin. It can take years to recover, if you ever recover. Google clearly treats brands differently. And it's not, you might say it's a bad thing or it's a good thing, depending on which side you're on. It just is what it is. And as marketers who are playing in Google's sandbox, we have to accept the reality and decide, hey, we want to become a brand, right? Because Google's penalizing non-branded sites, right? They are designed specifically designing algorithms to target people who are doing, who are optimizing for AdSense, optimizing for lead gen, optimizing for a pass-through experience as opposed to being the brand themselves. And this is wonderful if you're a brand, and it's really crappy if you're not. Right? Search for clicks. I mean, Bing did this great study last year where they looked at what biases people's clicks in the search results. And one of the big things they found is a recognizable brand in the domain name. In the domain name. That means if you don't have a brand name, a domain name that people recognize or presume is valuable and interesting, forget it. Right? That click is not coming your way. And this is a strong influencer. There's no more of this manipulative behavior that really lasts at scale. It can work. It can even work at scale, but it's always temporary. It's the way black hat's been for a long time now. It's churn and burn. Right? You might have success with a tactic. It'll work for a while. It won't work in the long term. And if you're building a brand, forget it, right? Forget it, because that recovery process is so impossible. Big, famous link networks are getting hit by this. Small local websites like the West Seattle blog had their page rank taken away, weren't ranking for things because they didn't take some of these silly little advertiser links and put a no-follow on them. The people who run the West Seattle blog don't know anything about SEO, right? I mean, no offense to them. Hopefully they're not watching and getting offended, but sorry guys, hi. But this is a problem, right? This is something that we have to recognize as SEOs. Blog networks are getting shut down left and right. Directories are getting obviously devalued, sometimes directly penalized. Sometimes they don't even appear in the search results. Much of the time they're somewhere between penalized, banned, and had their page rank removed, meaning Google clearly is not passing any link value from them. And by the way, Google is happy to tell you, right, that we will lift your penalty more quickly if you tell us how you got those links and who got you those links, so that we can blame somebody and we can take action against the network and scalably fire off algorithms that'll put these folks out of business. So they are taking heavy, heavy action. There's no more search without social either, right? I mean, if you're logged into Google, your results are getting personalized by social sharing, particularly on Google+, but even through other networks, right? Today, it's the case that Google's social graph is much bigger than most people believe it to be. A lot of people think Google's social graph is purely dependent on Google+, but for those of you who remember this web page, the Google Social Connections page, right? That used to show you exactly how you were connected to all the people Google connected you to, and it wasn't just through Google+, it was through networks like Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Quora and Yelp. They know through the connections that those pages pass to one another, through essentially the link graph, that, oh yes, this is you, this is the person you're connected to, you've emailed with these people, so therefore we're going to influence your results in this fashion. No wonder it is the case that as folks are putting out correlation studies, Search Metrics, for example, Moz has ours coming out in just a few weeks. Those are showing very, very high correlations between social shares and high performance in the search results, right? And because of how Google's doing these connections, email, if you're using Gmail or people in your world or network are using Gmail, that's influencing what they're seeing in the search results too. Google will go to extreme lengths to favor Google+, right? They're showing Google+ shares and plus ones and people who have things in circles from their advertisers. They'll even stop showing advertisements in favor of showing results from Google+, because they'd prefer that we do that kind of social optimization, right? That Google+ becomes adopted by all of the world's marketers and brands so that they can see those connections very easily. As Google and Bing have both talked about publicly, it's a lot easier to detect spam in a social graph than it is in a link graph. All this stuff, as it happened, right, this SEO world evolving, it forced me to evolve with it. It made my thinking get bigger and broader. And so, today, I think about SEO as a tactic, a powerful tactic and a powerful channel for driving traffic. But I think about inbound marketing, the connection of all the ways to drive unpaid traffic, earned media, as being a strategy. And it's a powerful strategy because the way I see the world is shifting from interruption marketing, what you see in red here, to blue, to inbound marketing. There's 90% of the clicks that take place on the web today go to organic or inbound channels. And yet, only 10% of the spend. Most of the spend is still on banners, still on big media, still on those classic kinds of channels, that push interruption marketing, as opposed to earning traffic through content, search, social, building up email lists, doing conversion rate optimization, right? All these organic tactics. And I can't imagine that we're going to see another decade where this shift doesn't occur, at least in part. And I think over the next two, we're going to see it in a big, big way. The key to inbound marketing, the reason it's so strategic, is because as an organization, inbound channels, essentially spending money and time and energy and effort on the channels where you earn traffic rather than buy, tends to be the case that you have a lower cost of customer acquisition, and that is a huge strategic advantage over your competitors. When your revenue can be grown, your sales, your traffic can be grown at a rate that is fewer dollars in per customer acquired, your competition doesn't stand much of a chance, do they? Very powerful stuff. I see SEO as no longer being able to stand on its own, right? It's the case that you can't do great SEO without great content. You can't do great SEO without having a great design and user experience. And by the way, if you're targeting mobile users, which are a huge percent of the emerging internet population, and a ton of how even mature countries and mature economies are consuming the web, you better be fast, you better be responsive design, you better be able to support those types of users. You're doing a lot of work that is not classic SEO, right? It's not just keywords, keyword research, targeting on page optimization, and link building, right? That old school SEO is still a key part of how we do SEO, but it's not the whole picture anymore. It's really not. This process is simple to understand, but it's so hard to execute, and it's powerful precisely because it's hard, right? My first step is I want to get to know who today's customers are, and then I want to figure out who my future customers are. Now I have to create content, right? Some value proposition, some reason why they're going to come to my site, and then spread it on all the channels that are available to me where I could touch customers, potential customers, or the people who influence them. Then I measure, I optimize from that measurement, and I improve. This is really how web marketing today is done, right? It's not the case that in our tree-focused world, SEO is just content, keyword, links, and rankings. SEO is deeply connected to all these marketing channels and all these practices. And that's the real forest for the trees picture here. So along with giving this big picture, I also want to dive in and share some very specific tips for investing in SEO that I think can help you. Number one, please don't invest in SEO or any marketing channel until you understand your customer's buying process. It could be the case that SEO is a great fit for attracting the audience you're looking for, but it might also be the case that SEO really isn't a part of your funnel in the way that you thought it was, and other mediums, other marketing channels, other avenues really are. And I would urge you to take a hard look at that before you invest in whatever marketing activity you're considering, right? Search is often at the middle of the funnel, right? It's sort of once I've discovered a brand, discovered a need that I have, discovered something, then I might be searching for it, I might be researching, I might be comparing stuff. Social media and content marketing and a lot of the brand marketing is really about creating that demand and creating that awareness. That happens very early at the top of the funnel. And so I have to understand where am I missing out? Where do I need to invest before I go start throwing money or people or time or effort and energy at any of these things, or consultants. Number 2, create a content strategy that matches your overall marketing goals, right? So it could be the case that your marketing goals are primarily around brand building, in which case I want to have the broadest, most interesting sort of viral content available. Or it might be the case that I'm really trying to speak to a very specific audience and I'm really trying to give them my value proposition and my competitive differentiator, in which case my goal is very different with my content, right? I'm targeting something that's very hyper-targeted at a specific market. I want to have essentially what this Venn diagram shows, which is the overlap between so unique and enjoyable that at least 1 out of 10 people who see it are going to share it. That's actually a pretty high bar, 10%, surprisingly high bar. I want to present it through a beautiful, usable user experience, right? One that helps make it more share-worthy and that helps to make sure that lots of people who are visiting it don't immediately leave, don't immediately click that back button. And then I need it to be relevant to my target audience or the people who are going to help them see it, those influencers of that audience. Number 3, I can't tell you how much of the time I hear this from people in the SEO world, which is, I don't understand why Google doesn't like my site anymore. I have good, unique content. And I feel like good, unique content is the minimum bar for just being in Google. That's not actually what's going to help you rank or help you perform. Good, unique content is no way good enough. It has to be exceptional, so uniquely exceptional that it stands out from a massive crowd. 10 years ago, you were playing in the SEO field, good, unique content was enough. It really was. And there are a few fields where it still is and it still works. But what do you think is going to happen over time? Honestly, what do you think is going to happen over time as people see, hey, there's this massive universe of keywords and opportunity, and all I really have to do is stand out from the crowd by being the best content available and earn those shares and those links. People are going to do it. The competition is going to get heavier and heavier. If you don't have that first mover advantage today by having absolutely phenomenal stuff, you really don't stand a chance. Not over the long run. Number 4, in today's SEO world, you need a network. You need a group of passionate people, whether they're people that are sort of connected to you through relationships, people that are connected to you through your locale, through your community, through your social networks, through email, whatever it is, you need a network of sharers, someone who can help amplify your message. And I would urge you to find those people if you don't already have them. And if you do, make sure that you're helping others and receiving help in exchange. That reciprocation process through your network is a very powerful part of what drives successful web marketing, particularly in the social world, but also on the link graph today. Number 5, be really careful. This is a tactical one, but be really careful about basing your estimates on Google's keyword search volume. These numbers are, in my opinion, they can be just way, way off. And we've seen it time and time again. You know, some new startup, some new company, some company that's existed for a while will say, well, you know, we saw that keyword X is getting 3,000 searches a month, and so we figured we can get about 10% of those. And now we're ranking number 1, and we're not even seeing 300 searches per month, and we can't make a business off this. We can't make this work, and we've invested all this time and energy and effort. And you know, my consistent message is before you ever trust these numbers, make sure you're running some campaigns, probably through AdWords, that test. Right? Run a campaign for 2 weeks. See how many impressions you really get. See what the click-through rate is like. See how those searches perform. And by the way, if you're using Google's AdWords tool, make sure that you are clicking on that exact match. Because broad match and phrase match are very different things and can mean that all sorts of words are in there. Right? That's not really people searching with the same intent that you're looking for. And that's a very important thing from a keyword research and a business research perspective. Number 6, well, 6A, be metrics driven. There's a caveat to that. I'll get to it in a second. But this, what you're seeing here is Moz's internal funnel. We get to look at how many people are coming to our website. We look at how they progress through the funnel, when they take a free trial. We see how long they stay with us after that. And because of that, everyone in the company can look at this and be on the same page about, what happened last week? Did we get a lot more traffic, but it's not converting as well? Or are we seeing conversions be very high because we did a business development deal? Or is something else going on? And we can analyze all of those things together. And we don't have to sit around and wonder and go, oh gosh, I don't know why the numbers look like this. This is so different from what we've seen in the past, right? That is an incredibly powerful thing. And being numbers-driven rather than opinion-driven, it's just, it can change the culture and the influence of what really matters. Very, very powerful. But, this is an important one. 6B, don't ignore the power of serendipity, right? Meaning things that happen seemingly at random from investing in activities that don't have a directly measurable return on investment. And this happens to me all the time. I go to a conference, and it's hard to say, gosh, was that conference really worth the $700, $800 I paid to go to it, and the $400 for my flight, and the 2 nights of hotel for another $500, and the rental car, and the meals, and the tips, and all this stuff. Boy, that was a $2,500 expense. Was that really worth it? Well, I don't know. Because maybe I met someone at that conference who will introduce me to someone else, who will mention me somewhere, who will say something nice about the company that will eventually lead to one of the best deals we've ever had. And it never would have come about if I hadn't been there. I like to say that I reserve 20% of my time, 20-25% of my time for serendipitous activities. Things that, no, I can't measure them. I really don't know whether this will have an additive positive result. But you know what? You got to give it a try and see if you can get that serendipity from that investment. And this is very hard to justify to management unless you justify it in this fashion, with saying, hey, for serendipity's sake, we have to invest in some of this. It's those chance meetings, those encounters over the years that turn into something special. And a lot of the real world events, which are so much harder to measure than the online marketing world, fit into this category. Number 7, outsourcing. If you're a brand or you run a website right now and you're thinking about outsourcing, so some link building, you're thinking about outsourcing some consulting, someone to analyze your site, some content marketing, content creation, it can be challenging, but it also can be very effective. And we've got a good list of recommended companies for those of you who might be doing business here in the US or the UK. But finding good providers, people who can really help move the needle, who are attributable, who are honest, who will follow the kinds of practices that you want followed, this can be very powerful. I do have one extra piece of tactical advice, which is if you're going to hire a consultant or work with an agency, please, by all means, make sure that you have someone from your team who's involved in it who can learn from that process. You want the learnings and the value from the organization that you're working with, the consultant, the agency, to come back to your company too. And even if you do outsource, I really recommend to have an expert on your team. This is Ruth Burr. She's the head of SEO here at Moz. And having her is invaluable. Even though we do work with contractors and consultants all the time, she sort of owns that stuff in-house. And I can't recommend it enough to all of you to do something similar, to have that in-house owner who's championing these practices inside your business, inside your company. Number 9, in the SEO world, it is almost always the case. Actually, it's always the case that anything that sounds too good to be true, it is. If it seems like, oh, well, this is interesting, but it's sort of on the border between what we can afford and the ROI we'll get from it, there's a good chance that it's worth investing in, worth pursuing. But if it's, hey, for $5, you can come on down and get 20,000 links. Well, yeah, it sounds great, but there's no way it's going to work, right? And even if it does work for a small amount of time, you can bet, especially if you're paying that little for that much quantity, they're going to be such low quality that you're going to get in trouble for it, right? Google does not want to let this stuff stand. And while it is definitely the case that, in English language speaking markets, particularly the US, those spam algorithms roll out faster, more often, and hit people harder. And then they roll out to other languages and other countries around the world. And so it can often be the case that you look at what's happening in the UK or the US or Australia and you kind of go, yeah, I'm not really seeing that here in I was in Italy recently, I was in Germany recently, France, I was in Paris at a show. And they're sort of like, well, we haven't yet seen this impact, but they know it's coming, right? You know it's coming because you've seen that pattern before. So be really careful, right, to just avoid this type of stuff if you're trying to build a brand for the long term, something that's going to be successful in Google over the long haul. Do not ignore channels that are hard to measure or the ones that your competition is ignoring. I see so many people do this. They go, well, should we be on Twitter? Maybe should we be on Facebook? Should we be investing in LinkedIn? Should we try Pinterest out? Should we be doing blogging? Is guest blogging worthwhile? I don't really know. I don't see any of our competitors doing it. So what's the value to us? You're kidding me, right? If your competitors aren't there, but your customers or potential future customers or influencers of potential customers are on those platforms, you know there's value. There is so much value to be had. And in fact, early adopters usually get far more of that value than late adopters do. If you wait until your competition is already there and already getting value from that channel, well, it's going to be so much harder to compete. Please go chase after these. Finally, number 11. If you're not yet doing multi-channel attribution, I would strongly encourage you to do so. What multi-channel will do for you is it'll let you see that the visitor path is not search for keyword term, come to website, convert. That's almost never how it works. There are multiple steps involved, right? Someone sees you mentioned in a tweet and comes and visits some of your content, and then maybe they see you in the search results and they click over because they had a good experience last time. And then they share something and they see something on Facebook. Then they get a retargeting ad because they visited your site. And now you can convert them because they're getting email subscriptions to your blog. Right? It goes along these channels. If you actually visualize and visually build that funnel, and you look at what sends you first-time traffic versus returning traffic versus people who've been there, 3, 4, 5 times versus people who convert, you'll see different channels are sending that different traffic. And if you ignore one of them, it's going to shrink further down, right? So if I don't do anything on Twitter, and that was sending a lot of my first touch visitors, right? First experience visitors, well, you know what? There's not going to be as many people at funnel step 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. This is a critical process, especially for those of you who are having a tough time convincing, your management or your clients that something like social or content marketing or a blog or participating in forums or, speaking at events and conferences or whatever it is, right? That those things are valuable, and they're only looking and saying, no, it looks like, branded search. That's where it's at. I want to invest all my money in branded search. How are you going to get those branded searches if no one heard about you beforehand? It's very tough. Multi-channel attribution, very, very valuable. All right, everyone. I am thrilled that I got to present this to you all. I hope that my experience of being blinded by SEO and then recovering from that and seeing this bigger picture can be helpful to you. You can download the slide decks at bit.ly/blindedbyseo. And if you'd like, you can reach out to me as well. Thank you so much. Take care.